Oliva. Thanks
What's
for
up?
coming down, man.
Dude, thanks so much for having me.
8:30. This is like the latest interview of all time.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
I love it.
I keep a full schedule.
I love it.
Dude, I'm from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to sleep, I'm just like full go.
That's awesome.
So like sometimes, my break is like, the end of the night after a committee meeting or something, or sometimes it's after work or after T-ball or whatever, but sometimes I got to just burn the midnight oil and let it run right till 10 o'clock or whatever it goes.
Oh yeah. Man after my own heart.
Yeah, you're always up early though, aren't you?
I'm up at 4. I've been waking up at 3:45. Yeah.
Man, even before kids?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta get up early for work.
For work, yeah.
And I like to be up and like, I don't like to rush when I wake up. I like to wake up and just like walk into walls for a little bit, drink a cup of coffee or two.
Yeah.
And then, then kind of, once I feel good, then I can leave the house and I'm like awake. I'm not like dragging myself.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I've always been the like, all right, I gotta be in the yard at 6. It's a half hour to get there. That's 5:30. I'll get up at 5:15. Like I'm always like, all right, let's just get up, get dressed, and go. So like I'm my wife calls me sleep sensitive because I like to sleep as much as I can, but I just don't get a whole lot of it, especially after the kids.
Yeah.
So
yeah, my daughter was she's got like some type of cold or something going on. She had a double ear infection.
Oh jeez.
And dude, she was coughing like sounded like an 80-year-old man.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, I'm like, what the I woke me up 1,000 times last night. It's crazy.
Oh jeez.
Yeah, they gave her the antibiotics or whatever today.
Good. Hope she's feeling better. That's the worst.
Yeah.
Especially like it always catches like kids like right now, like right as you get out of the winter into the spring and like the allergies and everything catch. And then you never know. You're like, well, is it allergies or do they have the cold or they have this or that?
It's so tough when they're little too. I can't talk.
It's rough. It's tough. Like I always said like around 18 months, like when they could start like at least letting you know like what it was, like their ears, their stomach, there's something, like at least they could tell you a something. Like once the guessing game starts to subside, like the stress level for me went down a lot. Like still when your kids are sick, like the stress level's high, but like at least when you have like a head start in trying to figure out what it is, I was like, okay, I can take at least a semi deep breath and try to figure this out.
Yeah.
So
Lucky for her, she was like playing with her ear.
there you go. Just to tell.
Yeah. And I took her on Friday and they went in there, looked, they were like, oh, she's fine. And then Michelle took her yesterday and they were like double ear infection.
Oh,
I was like, well, someone missed something. Someone's lying. What the hell?
Yeah, it doesn't happen like that fast.
Yeah.
Or it could, I guess maybe it
I
could.
don't know.
It
I
could
have no
happen
idea.
that fast.
Yeah, it's possible.
I'm not a doctor.
I'm not either.
That wasn't my thing.
Yeah. So you guys went out to eat in Atlantic City?
Yeah, tonight had a dinner with some people from work and we went to the Knife and Fork, which is the oldest continuous restaurant in Atlantic City.
That's older than Doc's?
It is. Yeah,
I thought that was like 18 something.
So I think that's what they say. Like when you walk in, there's like a little thing and it says it's the oldest continuous restaurant in the city.
Prohibition.
So yeah.
Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah. Dude, and the food's good there.
It's
good there.
It's very
so
good.
I like it. They do their thing. They got their exclusivity where it's like, hey, we don't open till dinner unless it's like a weekend or like a Friday. So but the food's good there. It's nice.
That's my brother and sister-in-law's like spot. So we go there with them, as much as we can. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. It's so I work almost directly across the street. There's Knife and Fork and directly across the street is Stockton University and then SJI. So like right there. So like I'm within walking distance. So
cool. So you mentioned your work. Let's get into it. You work for South Jersey Gas. What is your official title?
At SJG, I'm Director of Engineering Services. So I've been with SJG since I graduated college. So 2010, and I started there as an intern in 2008. A buddy of mine, his aunt worked there, and she was like, "Hey, you're an engineer? Are you going to school for engineering?" I was like, "Yeah," and she was like, "Hey, we're looking for like an intern there," and the company was a lot different then. Or a lot smaller than at least. And she's like, would you want to interview? And I was like, sure. And I interviewed and they were like, hey, would you like to come work here? And I said, sure. And I had a great interview or a great internship experience. So when I was done, my boss at the time was like, hey, would you want to come work here full time? And I said, absolutely. So I'm just close to home. It was right there. I knew I could like be home and I love the town, right? I knew this was like a place that I wanted to be and I wanted to stay. And, my little brother was a senior or a junior when I was graduating. So I knew he still had like one more year that I'd be able to be close to him and close to my sister. So it's like, yeah, I want to stay close to home. So I went to work there right after I graduated. I went to Rutgers in New Brunswick. And then when I graduated, came back home and went to work there, worked out of Folsom for a little while, worked in Egg Harbor Township for a bit, then back to Folsom, now in Atlantic City. So they keep me pretty busy, but it's a great place to be, great place to work. I love it there.
And you got in what, as they were transitioning from propane to gas, basically?
No, the propane transition was a long time ago. Probably the 50s or into the 60s. So natural gas, they had a number of manufactured gas plants. They actually had one here in Hamilton. But then everything transitioned over to natural gas, probably even earlier than that. I don't know the exact date, but it's always been natural gas for a long time.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah, because they went from the black pipe to the yellow pipe.
Yeah.
And that's, you came in right before that, I guess, or right around that time?
I guess like when they switched to like that black, or that yellow, like plastic pipe, I came in probably like right around then.
Yeah.
Yeah, like right around that time.
So it was booming. I mean, there was blanket contracts. There's contractors all over the place.
Yeah. So that was, I came in a time where, a lot of natural gas and just in the energy industry as a whole, right? Not SJI specific, but like in energy industry as a whole, a lot of distribution companies have cast iron as the pipeline of choice, right? But cast iron over time gets very brittle, so it needs to be replaced. So for gas infrastructure or water infrastructure or wastewater infrastructure, all that needs to be replaced in times. So I came in right as that replacement, cycle started. So it's honestly been great because it's given me an opportunity to see like a lot in like a very short period of time. So I've been there 15 years full time. But from the amount of work that we've done in the last 15 years versus the 15 years before it, it's a lot, but it's needed, right? It's needed for reliability, resiliency, continuing to, keep the lights on, and keep people warm. Right. So I think anyone who works in the energy industry, that's you got to have a passion for making sure that you do the right thing by people. Right. And, I know that everything, the things that I do are going to directly impact people's every day. Right. They're going to get up, they're going to cook their eggs, they're going to, wash their dishes. They're going to get a shower. They're going to heat their home, right? They're going to feel comfortable. And I'm going to have taken some small part in that to be able to provide them that service. So it's nice, but it's also a big responsibility, right? You're providing a service that people use day in and day out. And how many times, do you, the lights might go out or they might flicker for a little while. And, all of a sudden you're out of that or even your Wi-Fi or what have you for a couple minutes, and it's a huge deal anymore. And that's because we have such resilient systems now, which is fantastic, but it's something that people need, right? It's a necessity. So you take a lot of pride in being able to provide that for people. I personally
do. What the hell was I going to ask? I lost it. Oh, okay. So what does an engineer do for a gas company exactly?
Yeah. So I started in a group doing like modeling, software modeling, pretty much predictive modeling. Like, hey, how much energy would we use on a really cold day? How much energy could we use on a really warm day? And then how much of that energy do we have to buy? How much can we make or use ourselves? And then that's used, for a bunch of different departments. At the same time, it's looking at your system. And this happens across the energy industry as a whole. Everybody looks at their system. They say, okay, what am I going to need today? What am I going to need tomorrow, 5 years, 10 years? Because an investment that you make is not a short-term investment, right? The pipelines on the ground or the wires that are being replaced, they weren't put there 5 years ago or 10 years ago. They were put there 50, 60, 70 years ago. So you want to make sure that an investment that you make is going to be made prudently, and it's going to be made for not just a current state, but a future state. So I was working in a modeling group that helped make sure that we were making those right predictions. But I really transitioned over into engineering design and project management. So I started doing a lot of pipeline design, station design, facility designs. I started working to do both the design work and then the project management or construction work. So I was working with, bidding out projects, working with contractors, the men and women in the field ultimately to input those projects. And I moved into our operations group a couple years into the company. And I feel like that's where I learned a lot because I was in the field every day, right? So the team I was managing at the time was responsible for, the maintenance on the pipelines or valves, regulator stations, et cetera. So they were out every day, all union work. So I was out with them.
Wasn't always all union work.
It wasn't always all, no, but internally, everything, all that work internally is now. And, so like I couldn't, as a non-union member, I couldn't do anything. Like I was just there as a supervisor. But it was always great because like I learned so much from those guys and girls. We had a couple women on the crew too. So I learned a lot from them, and it was nice because there were some things that, maybe I learned from reading the book that I would ask, and I'd be like, well, why don't we do it this way? And they'd be like, oh, well, this is why. Right. All right. That's huge. Like that's huge because not everybody gets that. And then there'd be sometimes I'd be like, hey, I think we may be having an issue because the manual also says this a little deeper. And they're like, oh, that's a good point. So like when you work collaboratively with people, like you can learn from their experience and they learn from you. And it just, makes this really powerful, group and combination. So I learned a lot while I was in the operations team. And then I came back into engineering like 8 years ago and brought project management and engineering design and operations kind of all together. And it's been great. Yeah, they've been great to me. And I think we've had the opportunity to do a lot of, interesting, unique work. And it's something that I'm proud of, definitely proud of.
Cool. What's a pipeline design? What are you designing? Just like where it's going in the ground, or? Yeah.
So, if you look at, let's say you looked at a general street, right? In that street, there's every utility you can think of, right? There's water, wastewater, there's data, electric, there's gas, there might be storm sewer, whatever it is. So everyone has their clearances, right? You can only be so close to an electric line. You can only be so close to a water line. So you look at a general street, and let's just say it was somewhere like Bellevue Avenue, where there's a lot of utilities, right? The window to put a new pipeline or new facility might be like incredibly small. So after you work and coordinate where everything is, you can figure out where you're going to put your facility. And then ultimately, how are you going to connect that facility without interrupting other customers' usages, right? So if you think about it like in your house, if you were to go tie in like a new water line, you would probably shut the water off and like purge it and then just connect your line and start it all up. You can't really do that like in the street for like, if you're serving hundreds or hundreds of thousands of people, you can't just shut everybody's water off, everybody's electric off. So you have to work and look at ways to do like hot tap. So it's designing and engineering that process to make sure that you're able to continuously keep people served, but also make the improvements to your system that are needed. And there's a tremendous, in any energy industry, and any energy business, there's a tremendous amount of rules, federal requirements, state requirements, regulating entities. So it's making sure that everything that you do rolls up to all of those codes and requirements and making sure you don't miss anything. So there's a lot that goes into not just the design, but making sure that the design and what's carried out is done with respect to all those codes and standards.
So do you still have to pressure test a new line when you're hot tapping it?
Yeah. Yeah. So you'll pressure test everything first before you put it into service. So like, let's just say you run something new. This is for,
you just put a cap on it, run the, pump the air in.
Yep.
For X amount of time. And
could be air, could be nitrogen, could be, it could be water.
Before it goes in the ground, before you connect it, I thought you had to run the pressure test to the connection piece.
So you could put it in the ground, you could put everything in the ground, but before you tie it in and like put it on service, whether it's water or natural gas, you have to do a pressure test. So you would put that pressure test on. You would make sure it passes the pressure test that aligns with whatever code and standard you're looking to meet. And then when it was done, you would save that pressure test for the life of the facility, and then you can make the tie-in. So
that seems like a really interesting job. I that like very thought provoking.
It is. It's like, so like you have to write that procedure. Like that procedure is unique for like every single project you do, right? Because every different pipeline could have, a different pressure that you test to, or a different duration that you test to. And depending upon how long it is, the codes are different. And there's a matrix for a lot of stuff, right? That helps you work through that process a little bit better. But you have to write it uniquely for each and every one. And then there's obviously an approving party that goes through it. And all that stuff is audited, right? So nothing happens at an energy company of any kind where the board or the DOT or what have you, like the regulated entity, doesn't come in and look and audit your processes. So you have to make sure that that's all being done completely up to code because you own it, right? You own it, and it's the right thing to do for the safety and reliability of your system and your customers and the general public. But two, because it's a requirement. You have to make sure that you're being held to it.
What do you do in like emergency situations where you have to replace a 20-foot length of pipe?
So we actually, most companies have a pre-tested pipe stockpile.
Okay.
Where they actually, somewhere at a undisclosed location, they have sections of pipe that are pre-tested to, let's say, like the highest operating pressure they have. Or the highest voltage they have, whatever. They're already tested, already ready. So this way they can just put them into service if needed.
Isn't it cool how like all this like crazy checks and balances that go into everything, and still like the best way to test gas is with soap and water?
Yeah. Just to check for a leak.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they have all these unique different pieces of equipment that will test for lower explosive limit or upper explosive limit. But if you're like, hey, is that joint leaking? Yeah, you spray it, right? It's literally soap and water or like leak check solution. Yeah. And that tells you, it's
audit proof.
Yes. I mean, it is interesting, like in industry as a whole, like in every industry, some processes were made decades ago. And they're still the same because there's just no better other way to do it, right? It's still the best way. Like sometimes technology overcomes a lot of things, right? But in some cases, technology isn't always the answer, right? So you see some processes that are the same process that they were, but that's just because it's the best solution. Yeah.
All right. So I can't really continue this conversation without at least getting into the price of energy. Right. So Atlantic City Electric's been on the hot seat because their electric prices are just like
affordability is a big thing in the energy industry as a whole, right? Not just electric, but everywhere, right? And it should be, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, falling under the radar a little bit has been South Jersey Gas, whose prices have also surged. Like 3 years ago, I started noticing my gas bill was like $400 a month in the summertime or in the wintertime. And I'm like, what the hell? I mean, I was used to like, maybe $150, maybe approaching 200. And then one winter just like doubled. And I was like, what the hell happened? And they're like, everyone's so concerned about their electric bill because there are other options for electric. Like you could put solar panels up. You can, put a windmill in your backyard. I don't know. But like there are other options for electric. But that's just been like the hot topic. Why is it that gas has gotten so much more expensive?
So, well, how the rate making process works, that's not my forte. So I can't, jump into that. There's a team of people, at every energy company that go through a pretty rigorous process of working with like the Board of Public Utilities, to sit there and say like, hey, are the investments that we made, appropriate, right? And there's a team of like engineers and lawyers and very sophisticated people that go through that process. And I'm not super involved in that process.
Who names people to the board of public utilities?
I'd imagine, I don't know this for a fact, but I'd imagine it's the governor's office or the legislative branch of the state.
Yeah, because I feel like they just approve everything. They don't even.
There's a pretty rigorous review process, and I've only been like involved in like some discussions here and there, but usually it's, hey, you have to describe every project you've ever done and what what you're looking for and why it's why this project was impactful, right? And then how the process kind of goes from there is a little outside of my my wheelhouse.
But you guys are purchasing energy though from an outside source.
Yes.
Correct?
So
is that price going up?
So the price, the cost of the physical commodity has gone up, right? So like energy companies are built semi differently. Like the way SJI is built is that we're what's called decoupled, where essentially that the SJG doesn't make any money based off how much energy you use. Mm-hmm. Right. So they make money off a transportation fee, right? And that transportation fee is ultimately to pay for the maintenance of the pipelines and the men and women that provide that gas to you every day, right? But we don't make any money off the actual commodity. We buy the commodity, and a lot of companies are built like this, where they buy the commodity and then they transport that commodity, and you essentially pay two parts of your bill. What that allows you to do is that you can buy the commodity from like a separate entity, right? Like from like a Woodruff Energy, or you could buy that commodity from another company at like a wholesale price, like as a wholesaler, would.
I could as a homeowner?
You could as a homeowner.
Okay.
Yep. And then you would pay that price based under that contract, and then SJG would still deliver it to you. So you can do that for your electric utility. You could do that for your gas utility.
That's amazing.
So it's this whole decoupling process, which I'm not going to pretend to be an expert at all.
Yeah.
But what it does is it gives you options, right? It gives you options on energy. But the cost of the physical commodity had gone up. And I don't know when you noticed that change. But that's the one function of it. Companies at times, they go through and they do a review with the board, right, of their rates and, what the rates that they should be are charging. And in some years, all of that is regulated, right? So it's like very different. Like, how like when you get cable, like you could get, a gigabit delivery speed and you might pay $100 and I might pay $150, right? They're not regulated. Like they can offer you and me something different. Mm-hmm. Whereas like a regulated utility like SJG or ACE or PECO or whoever, they can't do that. Like the board tells them this is what you're going to charge people. Mm-hmm. So they come and they tell you like, hey, this is what your rate is going to be for people or customers like in this class. And it may be like, hey, customers that are, major energy users, like, like industrial processes and stuff, they use a ton of electricity or a ton of gas, right? They may pay a different rate than like you or me would pay, like heating our house. But they go through and they review that rate process. And they say, hey, this is what you can charge. And I don't know. I know that it's a very detailed and rigorous process, and there's a lot of engineers and lawyers that are involved. And fortunately, it's not me. So
yeah, roger that.
But no, affordability is a big thing, right? And I think the biggest thing is just making sure that board is always reviewing, investments to make sure that they're the right investments for people, right? And that responsibility is on both the company that's in front of the board and the board to do it right. So,
do nuclear power plants use energy from gas at all?
So there's only one nuclear power plant like in our service territory. Mm-hmm. But like I would say in the energy industry as a whole, yeah, they can take gas for different processes, right? You'd imagine that like any nuclear power plant would want to use their own power, right? That they're generating. And I think in the energy industry as a whole, that's a big thing is like everybody, sometimes people feel like, oh, I have to use my energy source, right? Right. I'm an electric company, so I have to use electric for all these processes. And really, what I've always said is you want to use what's most efficient, right? What's most efficient, what's going to cost you least, what's going to be the least maintenance. But yeah, nuclear facilities can use, natural gas or electric or other energy sources too. So that's. Do
you want to hear my theory?
Yeah. What's your theory?
Okay. I'm working on this theory.
What's your theory?
So the AI, in order to improve its system, needs nuclear power plant. It needs energy from nuclear power plants to reproduce itself and continue to make itself better and better and better and better.
Data centers are a huge thing. And it's in the news right now a lot about the incredible energy need.
It's insane. And there's more and more coming up.
Oh yeah.
Using more and more energy every day.
You remember probably like in early 2010s when they were talking about all like the Bitcoin mining, right? How like people mining Bitcoin was like crushing the electric grid because you have people that are trying to mine Bitcoin like in their house, in their basement. And it's so power intensive. It's so data intensive. And now they're looking at all these data centers, right? That need to be places for things like OpenAI to continue to develop and to continue to grow. And the demand and need for energy is
they say
high.
that's when it stops. Like it stops the process when they don't have enough energy.
I believe that.
So they have every incentive in the world to just like you said, this what was it called? The double. How I personally as a homeowner could purchase.
Oh, decoupled. Yeah.
So wouldn't it make sense that these huge corporations are decoupled and they are purchasing these massive quantities of energy from the same sources that South Jersey Gas would to feed the grid that comes into Hamilton or anywhere else, and that supply is becoming less and less and less because it's getting it's getting used. It's getting used by these AI companies, so it's costing us more money because South Jersey Gas or like companies, Atlantic City Electric, whatever, they don't have the same amount of. They don't have the surplus of energy that they otherwise would have.
Yeah, so obviously it's all supply demand, right? So the cost of the physical energy commodity, when there's a lot of it, it goes down, and when there's not a lot of it, it goes up.
So there's credence to my theory.
So if another like major company was buying like huge amounts of energy, and it restricted like capacity, like. And that changed the commodity cost because like there was a scarcity. Yeah, that can absolutely fluctuate the commodity cost for sure.
I'm wondering if there's a correlation between it two. It seems like there is to me.
I wouldn't be shocked, right? Because everything I did it. Everything is you cracked the case. You cracked it.
Yeah.
There's everything is based off of supply and demand, right? And especially these big data centers. They don't want to be told, oh, hey, we could have you electric, we could have you gas, we could have you, CHP, whatever it is, we could have it to you in 3 years. Like they're like, no, like I want to build this and I want to be up and running in 6 months, right? Because they have, like you said, they have these financial incentives because AI is
they're dumping billions of dollars,
billions with a B, soon to be trillions with a T. Like it's a ton. It's an absolute ton of money, like a kind of money that we can't like really conceptualize.
And it's crazy because they're spending so much money, and that money is going to prevent people like us from preventing this AI from taking over the workplace because there's too much money involved for these like lobbyists and these huge corporations that like they will not accept no for an answer. There's just no way. Like it's not going to ever go into legislation. Like I've been saying, like we should, as New Jerseyans, we should try and get our leaders to put an ordinance in to like just stop the use of automated vehicles, of AI that takes over human being jobs. But with all the money that they're spending, like I'd be damned if they let 1/50th of the United States say no, we're not allowing that in our state. Like there's just no way that they would allow that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's the expansion of AI. It's happening so fast.
It's crazy. Like, it's common, dude.
Have you used like ChatGPT or like Microsoft Copilot or anything
like that?
A little bit,
not like nothing crazy. I mean, I do it kind of through Lewis. Like he sends me screenshots. Rob Bukowski uses it quite a bit.
Yeah. I've just like dabbled in it. Like every once in a while, I'll like search something. I'm like, I want to see how accurate this is or how fast this is. And it's incredibly, it's incredibly fast. Doesn't mean it's always exactly accurate. Right. So like if you ask it questions that like like things really well, every once in a while you'll be like, let me double check that and see. Cause like you always got to double check where the data is coming from, like where it's sourcing it from. But for the most part, I would say like 90 to 95% of what I've ever asked it to do is not just right. Like it's very, very well put together. Like it sounds great. You could ask it to like write you stuff in a different tone, like write it like Julius Caesar said it. or
Yeah.
write it like,
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle said it.
You can still tell when someone's using it though. Like,
you definitely can.
Yeah.
Especially,
So they haven't gotten that good yet, but it's coming. I mean,
because you can see it. It's funny. Like every once in a while you see like memes online about, like big companies who, use it for like openly, like you can tell they're like openly using it for like their Twitter posts or Facebook, because like it's a very specific way of writing where like normal people don't always think to like write in the same fashion that they would. So you see like, oh, well, that was definitely AI generated.
We had this this girl, she was like graduated. She was very early on in her collegiate career, and she approached us about doing like creating a TikTok page for us, and she wanted to like manage this TikTok page for class, and it would be credited, and all we had to do was fill out a couple of things, and we're like, yeah, hell yeah, like we suck at TikTok.
Yeah,
that'd be great, So we went through this whole process of like uploading all these clips and like all these things that she could use for the social media page, and she wrote us this like ChatGPT letter, and it was like so obviously ChatGPT. We're like, all right, whatever, dude.
Think about that like in education.
Yeah.
Right. Like how hard is that going to be for people to like, kids are going to write a paper, right? And they're going to be tempted.
Well, they're going to have to make AI that can detect
that. Cause I always remember like in college or shortly afterwards, when you would write a paper, they would like scan it in or you would send it to them like a PDF. Yeah. They'd make sure it wasn't plagiarized, or they'd come back and they'd say, hey, only 31% of this is like found other places. So it, stamp it's not plagiarized. But like now AI is getting so good at making things seem original that you're going to need to create AI to find the AI written like paper.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's a whole,
and it's not going to do that either because the AI is creating itself. So when this AI creates its counterpart, the problem is going to be that this counterpart is going to stop this AI from achieving its goal. And so it lies already. Like they've already detected it lies. So it'll create this thing that kind of works, but it won't like totally detect it'll know how to beat it.
Yeah. It's going to be wild to see it like adapt.
It's scary, dude.
And see it adapt and change. I think about it like with my kids, because like I want them to be out and experience the world, right? Like I want them to be out and I want them to be like, get out, play sports, play outside, do this, do that, like play with your friends, like don't watch a lot of TV. I don't want you on the iPad a whole lot.
Be people,
right? Because this is still how things happen, right? This is still how things get done, right? And I think it's gonna be like that for a long time. But at the same time, like when he, my son's 5, when he's 15, when he's 18, when he's 25, there's gonna be a lot of his life that's on that screen. So it's like, how do you balance making sure that they're good at that, because you don't want to get left behind because they don't know enough of the tech, but also can still do this because they grew up in a way where this was prioritized. So it's unique because that technology is making it like easier and easier and more desirable to just like stay on that screen like all the time. Like I
think people need to fight back like right now. Like I think like right now we have to stop these things from like taking our job. Like we just talked about in the last podcast episode, that the first fully automated semi truck is making round trips from Houston to Houston to Austin, maybe.
Really?
Yeah, it's 600 miles round trip.
So someone's loading it and everything else, but there's no driver.
No driver. Yeah. So
wow.
so you eliminate the 11-hour drive time, 8-hour rest. Like you eliminate all that stuff, and you just have you're not paying labor costs. But I mean, there's like, how many drivers are in this country that are going to lose, that are just like about to lose their job if they let this take place? Like we need to find a leader in like New Jersey, for example, and someone that'll say like, I'm not going to let these robots take your jobs.
I feel like with any big societal shift, there's always so much pressure to do it quickly that there's not enough time to sit there and actually plan for the process to get from A to B. Like, okay, let's just say you want to get to a point where you're like, okay, hey, we want all deliveries that are greater than X number of miles, right? That would require that 8-hour rest, so to speak, right? Like, so let's just say like, hey, any drive that is over the DOT's requirement that requires an 8-hour rest, it's 11 hours, 12 hours, whatever it is. Any drive that's over that, we want to make sure is done, essentially by a robot,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that someone doesn't have to be involved in that. Okay, well, how many jobs does that displace, right? You would conduct an analysis to see like, oh, well, it's this many jobs. And then you sit there and say, all right, well, how many jobs do I have to create the tech, police the tech, to manage the tech, to manage the databases, et cetera, for that, right? And then what's that delta? Like, hey, is it I'm losing 1,000 and gaining 800? Like, and it's a process of, shifting careers, right? And then how do you give the people the tools? Like, hey, this is the sector that's impacted. How do we give these people the tools to move into these areas? Because if I want to make this move, right, I'm taking jobs from here and I'm moving jobs to here, right? What's the pay disparity? What's the et cetera, right? All that I think needs to be like really carefully considered, because again, just like we were saying before this, just because it's newer doesn't mean that it's better. Doesn't mean just because technology is saying that you can doesn't necessarily mean that you should right now. And I think it's important to make sure that you prioritize that process of finding, or gaining that knowledge, right? Knowledge allows you to make better decisions, right? And if you're able to go through that process and not rush it, then hopefully you can build those processes, and that, that's something to help get people from where they were to where, the society is moving to. But in the meantime, I think there needs to kind of like be a pause until like that analysis happens.
Totally. I can't agree anymore.
Right?
And they're not waiting though. They're not. I mean, these guys that are spending the billions, soon to be trillions, they're not waiting,
because
they want to roll that shit out.
Yeah. And it's because the market isn't a today's market; it's a next year market, right? You're betting futures, right? So I think everybody is betting like, hey, AI is going to be more next year than it was this year, right? Just like everything. Let's take a big company like an Amazon, right? You buy and sell them on the stock market, right? Because you think next year Amazon's going to be bigger. Like everybody's playing a future game. So I think everybody's quick to move the future to now because that's where they put their money, right? So let me get the future to be now, because I put my money here and I want the money as fast as I can get it. But I think it's really important to make sure that you're conducting the right analyses along the way so that you don't leave anybody behind.
Yeah.
Right. We have processes like, No Child Left Behind Act, right? To make sure we're not leaving kids behind. Like, we got to make sure that as a society, we don't make shifts that are leaving like a big group of people behind. Right. And where there's going to be a societal shift that's going to leave a group of people in a position that they weren't already, or, that they weren't originally planning for, how do we make sure that we build the infrastructure to get them to a place that they're going to be okay too? Because there's no decrease
I think
of people.
the infrastructure is in the works with virtual reality, to be honest with you. I think that's where a lot of people are going to find a home.
In like what way? Like
Ready Player One. Like they're just going to create a utopia for themselves, and that's going to be like their little happy place, and they'll just put their goggles on and
just live it.
And just chill. Like it's... Yeah, and they'll just be like, 9 foot tall purple people eaters, and they'll just be happy because they're just living in this utopian world for however long they could, stand it. To me, I mean, that's kind of what they're gearing up for, right? Like everyone's got a smartphone. Everyone's staring at a screen. Mm-hmm. I mean, how big of a shift is it to just put a pair of goggles on and live in that world?
Yeah.
If you don't have a job.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not working or actively looking for work and you're just existing, then yeah, I mean, what's the difference? What's the difference? Yeah. What's the difference between sitting there playing Skyrim, right? Or COD or whatever, 9 hours a day, 10 hours a day, to just being in like utopian world.
Yeah,
right.
They could have jobs in there, maybe. They could probably find Bitcoins or something.
I bet you. Well, I bet you. Like honestly, this is gonna sound nuts, but you create that VR world, right? Somebody's going to create that VR
it's the
world.
Metaverse, right?
The metaverse, right? So there's going to be that VR world. There's going to be people that create pieces inside that VR world, and you're going to be able to buy their skins or their artwork or their what have you.
Exactly.
Right? So there's going to be people that they might make the metaverse a home as a release or a place to just enjoy themselves, but it might also be a place where people like make it a career. because they're going to sit there and say, hey, I'm going to become in this metaverse. I'm going to become what I can't be out here. I'm going to become like an influencer, or I'm going to become a person of prominence in some way, or
well,
I'm going to create
a realtor. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you can take people on a virtual tour of a house that's like in reality.
Right.
And they could like make a decision on a huge purchase.
Right.
You could go to the pizza shop that the pizza shop, purchase some real estate in the metaverse, and there's a pizza shop, and you go there and order yourself a pizza, and it'll arrive at your real house.
Yeah. And eventually that stuff's going to start costing money.
Yeah,
like,
but it's going to cost like
money.
Yeah.
Right. Like, because it's like, you're going to be sitting there and you're going to be like, oh, hey, like think about it. Like, when sports cards went digital, right. And all that stuff, like all of a sudden you're buying like a digital sports card, like a sports card that somebody could just make another one and send it right to you. But people are buying them for hundreds of dollars. Like, this is not like a 1 out of 1, Ohtani rookie card. Yeah. Like, this is like something that we've only ever created one. Yeah, but you could just create another one tomorrow.
Yeah, like the monkey pictures.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not like it would be any appreciable difference, right? Because it's not physical. But there's going to be people that create stuff like that, and it's going to be worth whatever the market just says it's worth, like art.
Yeah.
Like art is.
It's scary, dude.
It's weird because it's less tangible. I think that's what's scary about it for me, is like, when you have a physical commodity, it's a tangible thing, right? Like, I know this bottle of water, if I go to the store, it's $1 or $2, and it's like a physical thing here in front of me. Whereas in the metaverse or in AI, it's intangible and it means different things to different people, right? This bottle of water means the same to you as it does to me, right? We're going to drink it differently from each other. But it's different when it's like in an AI world, because its value is different based off of different people and different times. And it's just uncertain, right? And that uncertain doesn't always make people feel very good. Uncertainty, like, that's the bottom of the pyramid, right? Like, you need to have that safety and that certainty to make you, continue to grow, right? To ultimately get to a point of like self-actualization and like happiness, right? So like, that's I think the part is, it's like almost a little unsettling, in a way.
Well, they'll be like meta therapists.
Yeah.
They're going to talk about your shit.
You know what? But like, that's going to be a thing. Like,
it's
there's going to be a
separate, if it's not already,
there's going to be like a separate world inside our world.
Yep.
Right. And I think that's the goal of the people that are pushing, like,
there's gonna be like support groups in there for like, you could go to like Truckers Got Fired Anonymous. And
well, think about it. I mean, there already is, like, on Facebook right now. Like, think about it. There's a support group for everything. Yep. Like, you pull your back out and you have a bad back. There's a support group for people who have a bad back, right? There's a support group for people who are sadly Giants fans, right? So it's like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but like, so it's like,
thank you, Giants.
Yeah. Thank you, Giants.
I had a shirt made. Yeah.
So it's like, there's support groups for like everything out there. And that's just like, again, tangible, visual or something. But when it gets to a metaverse type area, it becomes something, something else, something different. So yeah, that wouldn't shock me if that
bro, I gotta have you on more often, bro. We could dive into some shit with you.
Go in.
I like where your mind's at. So speaking of innovations and like crazy shit, let's talk about natural hydrogen.
Hydrogen?
Yeah, natural hydrogen.
So hydrogen is an energy source too, for sure. And that's
I've been told that South Jersey Gas is the leading, like the leading the way in natural hydrogen to supply houses with energy.
So we are working on a hydrogen project, and just to kind of touch on like what hydrogen is. Like, hydrogen is actually like the most abundant element in the universe. And it's smaller than natural gas or methane or oxygen or what have you. And there's a process called electrolysis, where essentially you could have like water-based electrolysis, where they take H2O and they break it into its original, like into its two separate pieces. So you have like the H2 and the O, and the O goes in the environment, right? It goes in the atmosphere, ultimately improves like air quality. And then the hydrogen you keep, and you could either use it as like a standalone fuel, because like a lot of different fuel cells or a lot of different like industrial processes, they just run on hydrogen. Or you could use it as like a blending fuel, where you can actually blend that hydrogen in with a fuel like natural gas.
So it cuts it?
Yeah, and like cut the natural gas. So actually, Hawaii's gas is almost 20% hydrogen. It's
you
like,
would think that there's like it's very hydrogen rich over there because of all the volcanic.
yep. Yep. It's like
Yeah.
it's like a synthetic, almost like a synthetic natural gas over there. So like theirs is like 17 to 18%. That's all like public info. Like it's all like somewhere between like 15 and 20% like hydrogen. Right. So obviously when there's any different element that's in a pipeline has a separate set of codes and standards that are needed to make sure that it can be operated like safely. But yeah, there's the big thing with hydrogen. One, they have these things called like hydrogen hubs. And these hydrogen hubs are like a bunch of different like industrial users that would commit to like only using hydrogen for their processes. And you can burn hydrogen just like you would burn gasoline or oil or natural gas.
Does it burn faster because it's smaller?
It has about 1/3 of the energy content of natural gas.
So you're using a lot more to get the same shit.
You use 3 times as much to get the same amount of energy.
So these 1/2-inch services that are going to people's houses, is that going to be sufficient to?
In the future, like, you know, if the future state was ultimately to incorporate like a significant amount of hydrogen or a lot of hydrogen, you'd have to take a look at your system and say like, all right, do the pipe sizes need to get bigger? How much more, energy would I need to be pushing through a pipeline? What does that do to your demand? So like, yeah, that would need to be like a huge, undertaking, to go through that whole process. But in, in small quantities, it wouldn't have really much of an impact. So, really the big thing is making sure that all of your materials and everything that you're using can handle both fuels, right? Or a blending of both fuels. So like I know in Hawaii, they run everything that way. And the big thing is, ultimately, obviously we talked about affordability, like how you charge people, right? Because if all of a sudden there was a bunch more hydrogen, like in a pipeline, right? And somebody was using more energy because of it, like you would have to adjust their bill like accordingly. So like that would obviously be a big process. Like if you were to go through that, but, these hydrogen hubs, they use just hydrogen, and then people will actually burn like just hydrogen in these areas. So it's pipelines that are built in this hub that are used just to burn that one fuel source. And then extra hydrogen, if there was leftover that they generated, could be input in the gas stream. And the thing is, when you burn hydrogen, you get water. Mm-hmm. Like water is the main byproduct of burning hydrogen. So it's different because it's not carbon intensive. And that's a big thing in New Jersey. It's a big thing federally, right? Is the carbon intensity that they say is like, obviously too much carbon can, impact greenhouse gases or create greenhouse gases, which can impact the environment. So you want to keep that carbon, you want to work to find ways to mitigate greenhouse gases. And one way of doing that is with carbon capture, right? Or with, using hydrogen in ways because it's a non-carbon based fuel. So it's definitely one of the alternative energies of the future, right? So you look at it and energy's not going anywhere, mm-hmm. right? And that was part of the reason why I got involved in energy, like as a whole.
Yeah, future proof.
Because I looked at it, especially now having kids, like I want to wake up and I want to know that, I'm going to have a job, right? That I'm working in an industry that I don't want to say is like, nothing is like recession proof, quote unquote, right? But I want to make sure that like I'm working in an industry that isn't going to be like here today and there tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And that was something that was interesting to me because it's like, hey, the need for energy is only going to grow. I can tell you this is an interesting fact that in January of this year, the main 48 states of the U.S. used more energy than they've ever used in a month before to heat their homes. So it's like, that's huge, right?
Why is that, do you think? There's not more homes.
There's the demand for energy is greater, right? As much as
people want it warmer?
Maybe people want to warmer. Well, it was also cold. It was really, we had a very cold January across the whole U.S. Uh-huh. So it was one of the coldest Januaries or coldest months that we've had in like almost 30 years. Mm-hmm. So if you think about it, like 30 years ago, there are a lot more homes and a lot more businesses that are more energy intensive than 30 years ago or 25 years ago. So that's part of the reason why. But, energy is one of those things where it's going to be here, right, for a long time.
Mhm.
Like we're always going to need it. And it's not a good business decision or societal decision to just run on one fuel and one fuel alone. So you have to make sure that there are opportunities and avenues for other energy sources. So investigating and trying to figure out a way to see if wind works or solar works or hydropower works or hydrogen works. Like, yeah, it's worth the time and effort and the money to find a way to make that stuff work, because if you can even peel off a piece of the percentage of overall energy, and that's at least another way of getting people affordable energy, you should look to develop it.
How fast is the process of turning water into hydrogen? Is it immediate?
It's very fast.
You introduce an iron-rich source, right, into the water, and then the water splits it. Is that how that works?
There's almost think about it like a strainer, right? You can think about it like a strainer. What you do is you take the water, and through an electrical process, it hits this like plate almost.
Mm-hmm.
And when it hits that plate acts as a strainer essentially. And it lets the hydrogen go through the strainer because hydrogen's really small, and it doesn't let the oxygen go through the strainer because that is a bigger molecule. So the strainer catches the oxygen and pushes it one way, and it lets the hydrogen go through, and it lets you capture that and use it. So it's kind of like, when you're making pasta.
So it's quick.
It's quick. Oh yeah, it's quick. Like it's not like
so they could make an engine. That'll take water.
Oh yeah,
and just turn it into hydrogen, and you can burn it.
There are electrolyzers that do that now. That essentially take water and immediately turn it into hydrogen, and then you take that hydrogen and put it right into, whatever kind of use you want. You could use it like almost like as a fuel cell,
mm-hmm.
right? So like, hey, I'm going to just generate on site my own power, right? And that's become a really popular thing too for energy. Big energy users. So they're like, hey, if the grid is going to take me X amount of time to get me this, why don't I just generate it myself?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or they're going to charge me to generate it. Well, if I generate it myself and then I'm not paying their OpEx costs, I can keep it and do it my own way with my own men and women who are working here already. Well, that keeps the OpEx costs down. I'll just do it myself. So
can you do that with ocean water? Or do you have to desalinize the water?
No, you have to desalinize the water. So you actually, the process of electrolysis is a little tricky from a water quality standpoint, because we're really lucky in New Jersey. We live in one of the areas that has one of the largest freshwater aquifers in the world, in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And the Kirkwood Cohansey Aquifer, which is directly underneath us, is I think it's 17 trillion gallons of water. It's something huge. And that is one of the largest freshwater aquifers, in not just the state, but in the US. But the water is so good. Like our water here in New Jersey is good. Like if you go down to, if you go to Florida or any other,
mm-hmm.
a lot of other places, like by the beach, it does that.
You gotta
water.
Buy bottled water.
You gotta buy bottled water. Yeah. Like you're not going to Key West and drinking the water, right? So our water here is really good, and we're really lucky. But it does have certain minerals in it that are not great for the electrolysis process. So you actually have to remove them. You have to go through like a water purification process to remove them before you can put it into.
Is that as big of a pain in the ass as the desalination?
I've never been through the desalination process, but I do know that there are other like cities who are doing it, like to go through the desalination process, like on the Pacific coast. And it seems very involved. Like
I know it's expensive.
It seems very expensive.
I know, like Southern California
tough.
Shut it down. Like they should be like absolutely desalinizing the water to combat these wildfires, but they refuse because of the Environmental Protection Agency out there.
It seems like a really challenging process. So I don't know a whole lot about it, but there was you ever watched the show Sunday Morning?
No.
It's a show. It's on, I think it's on CBS or maybe it's on NBC. And on it, they always like go through like music and art and other stuff. But there was like a documentary or like a 10-minute special on water desalination in outside of like LA or San Francisco or something, and just the room of equipment that they had that was going through this, all these canisters and charcoal filters and everything. I'm like, you could be in there just literally working maintenance every second of every day, right? I'm not talking an 8-hour day. I'm talking like 24 hours a day, every single day, like just to go through the process. So it seems really involved. It seems like really, really involved.
Well, I mean, at some point they're going to have to figure it out like efficiently because at some point we're going to need to desalinize some ocean water.
I've always said this, that water is the most precious resource we have, right? Like that's like the ultimate thing, right? Like, I could, I don't ever want to, and I hope we never see a time where I have to go where my lights are off or where my house is cold, but you can't make it without water, right? You make it a lot further without power or without a warm house than you could without water.
Yep.
Right. So, that water preservation is something that's definitely, important, or working to, figure out how to like desalinate or provide, cleaner water. Did you have, Mr. Quinney in high school?
I never had them.
So Quinney used to do this thing in biology where he would take like a water tank and he would just like let the water tank get like algae and gross like throughout the course of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then in, May or June, he would like run it through like a reverse osmosis process, and you'd watch this like green water become like this, and then you just drink it. And I was always like,
wow.
I was always shocked, right? But it's like there's processes out there that clean dirty water.
Yeah.
Right? It's just how expensive are they?
Yep.
Everything's about it's all
that seems pretty
everything's
cheap.
Money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember what it was like. I just remember like the water went in green and it came out clear. And I was like, there's no way I would drink that. Like I couldn't do it. Just like one of those like fear factor type things. Like I don't want to drink that.
I'd try. I'd go for
it.
No. So you're looking to cut the gas with hydrogen, and is that should theoretically bring about some savings to customers as far as
I don't know about
energy goes?
I don't know about savings.
Is that the purpose of it?
No. So really it's about incubating the energy industry as a whole, right? How do you work towards incubating, new processes in energy? And the best way to do that is with companies that have, the knowledge, like the individuals and the means and the funds to be able to incubate that process for you, right? Private, companies can, or private and public companies can work together to do that type of, industry incubation. Also working to find ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and reduce carbon intensity of the fuels that we burn, right? So it's kind of like a twofold thing. From a rates perspective, I don't know how it would, I don't know how it would fit in from a rates-based perspective. But really it's about, hey, we're going to get to a point as a society where we're going to need more than just, natural gas and electricity, right? And a lot of the electricity that is generated is by burning natural gas or by burning fossil fuels. So it's like, all right, how do we find other fuel sources? Because even just electrifying things in a lot of ways means you're still burning more fossil fuels to create more electricity, right? So I think it's about just diversifying the amount of energy types that you have so that you don't have all of your eggs or most of your eggs in only a few baskets, right? And that they're at least scattered different places. No different than the way you'd play the stock market. You wouldn't put all of your money in Apple, but you also wouldn't put all of your money in tech, right? You wouldn't put it in just the 10 biggest tech firms. You would spread it around to different industries. And that's the same way you want to do it with energy, is you want to say, all right, these are my bellwethers, right? These are the places that, I'm putting most of my energy usage in, but these are the areas that we've got to make sure that we develop. So that this way we're growing as the industry and everything grows as a whole. So it's a really interesting time to be in the energy industry like as a whole, because there is so much conversation just about it right now in general, right? And the need and use and the growth of it, as we think of a society about like, hey, electrifying vehicles, right? So you want to create electric vehicles. That's a huge energy demand. That's a huge energy load that would need to go from, a portable, essentially a portable or truckable fuel in like gasoline to like a deliverable fuel that comes through like a series of lines, like through, your electric provider. So as much as it might be, hey, I'm not using more energy, like, hey, the car and gas are still the same amount of energy. It's how do you get that energy, right? The method to get it is different, and you have to find a way to beef up that new method to be able to deliver it.
Have you looked into ammonia?
No, I haven't.
So we had Mike Lynch on, I don't know, weeks ago, months ago, before we even got to the studio, and he works in the ship industry.
Okay.
And he was talking about how they are now using mostly liquid natural gas to fuel the ships.
Yep.
And he said they're going to start introducing ammonia, which is a extremely clean burning energy source.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So I figured I'd ask, because if you guys are looking into alternative resources for burning whatever fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just figured maybe you knew something about it.
No, I didn't. I don't know anything about ammonia. The interesting thing with like liquid natural gas is it's 1/600th the size of natural gas. So like if this bottle was full of liquid natural gas, it would be the same as 600 of these bottles with just regular natural gas in it.
No
That's why
kidding.
ships use it, because they could have like a room or like a cylinder that has, a room that's this size of liquid natural gas in it, but it would give 600 of these rooms worth of actual natural gas. So like you can pack so much energy into so much smaller of a space. So
That's cool. Yeah, I actually reached out to him about the hydrogen thing, and he said they're talking about it, at least. Yeah, for the ships also.
I think like there's a lot of people that are talking about it now too, because everyone's just looking for a way to make sure that you're diversifying yourself, and diversifying the industry as a whole. I think that's the one thing I think everyone in the energy industry like kind of agrees on, is that just one fuel is not a safe decision.
It's got to be these AI companies that are like causing this stir.
Well, I think the demand, like the major demand that they need, is definitely pushing a bit, because it's like, hey,
and it's exponentially more.
Yeah, I think there hasn't been a huge increase in demand in any type of energy, because there hasn't really been like such a new process like that. Like think about it, like we used X amount of gas before cars, right? And then when somebody built cars and we were like, oh my goodness, we're going to use so much more gas now, right? And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, well, hey, we don't need to have like an oil heater. We can create a natural gas heater. And now all of a sudden, now you're using a lot more natural gas. Now it's like, hey, now we have this really data intensive process, and for it, I need a ton of electricity. So now you're seeing that next like shift. And everyone's going, well, how do I get that much? How might I get that much electricity? So I do think that these data centers are a big part of it. And I know it's a big topic in the industry.
And if you're like one of the powers of be, like one of these, energy companies, it's like you're looking at this thing like a bell curve, and it's just going like, it's not like slowing the process. I mean, it's going exponentially more and more and more.
The AI data centers, I think, they're going to keep growing, because they're going to grow as AI grows.
Yep.
Right. And the question just becomes, where do they locate?
Yeah.
Right. They're going to locate wherever they can get the power first.
Yeah.
Right. And that's going to be the big thing, is who's going to be able to make the play to get them the energy. And that's where they'll start to site. That's going to be interesting to watch.
This is crazy, dude. What a crazy conversation.
Yeah. It's a wild industry to be a part of right now.
Yeah.
But it's fun because it's wild and stable, like at the same time. So many times you have like wild but volatile, right? So it's like you get to work in a stable industry that is also exciting and ever changing. I can tell you, I go to work and no 2 days are the same. It's same, every job you do, even if it's the same thing, you're putting in different services, you're repaving a road, you're pulling something, you're pulling old utilities out of the ground, whatever it is, even if it's the same thing you did yesterday, it's going to be different because it's a different place, different set of circumstances. So I like that. Like I've never operated really well, like just doing the same thing like every day. Like I like that disparity in the things that I do. It just, I think it makes it more fun and more fulfilling.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. All right. I ask everyone, I'll ask you. What's the dumbest thing you've seen this week?
I don't know if it's the dumbest thing, but maybe it's the most.
The Mavs getting the number 1 pick in the draft?
Yeah, that's pretty dumb. So I felt bad because I was busting on him afterwards. So I went to lunch with a buddy, and we've all done this, and I've done it myself, but it just, you feel so dumb when you do it. We went to lunch. We went to Vagabond right in AC. Their food's great there, by the way. Shameless plug. We went there and we're sitting there and we order. Waiter comes and he brings us our food and he goes like, "Hey," everything good? And we're like, yeah, everything's great. He's like, "All right, enjoy your meal." And my buddy goes, "You too." Like, like so many times, like somebody's just like, just, "Oh, hey, how are you doing today?" And you're just like, "Oh, great." And then, or something like that, or they'll say like, "Hey, have a great day." And you say, "Okay." Yeah. Like you don't even say,
just
"Oh,
on
you
autopilot."
too." You're just on autopilot. So he was just on autopilot, and the guy was just literally like, "Okay, enjoy your meal." He's like, "Thanks, you too." And I'm like, that's just so. I just started laughing. He's like, "I did that, didn't I?" I was like, "You did." I was like, "That's just awkward." So maybe it's not the dumbest thing, but like I feel like it's something we've all done.
Certainly qualifies.
Yeah,
I count it.
What do other people say? You ask everybody. What are some of the best ones?
We had a psychologist, the head of psychology around university, said she like intentionally drives older model vehicles.
Okay,
she doesn't like the bells and whistles.
Yeah,
and she had to rent one, and it kept telling her to drink coffee. And I'm like, and she thought it was she's like, "It's just dumb. Like, why is this thing telling me to drink coffee? Like, no, thank you." And I'm like, "Well, it means you're swerving."
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, I got you. Yeah. Yeah, I used the word atufi was a dumb thing I used one time. Atufi? It's like a cooking it's like a cooking method where you like smother something in butter or something. It's French, but
okay.
I just think it
sounds delicious.
It sounds delicious, but I don't understand why. Like that's a word that they use in France, and then we use it here. Like, why do we change every other word except for like certain words? Like, how come because or together or any other word you could think of is changed language to language, but atufi is not. Yeah, it makes no sense. It's dumb.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's because like it's only used in that area. Like maybe it's only used in that maybe it's only used in France. Like, hey, like no other place does that.
Well,
like,
we do it in America.
But but if we do it here, then it's like, why wouldn't it just be
something like smothered in butter?
Right, yeah.
Like whatever. I don't know.
Now I got to look it up and see like what they make like that, because anything smothered in butter sounds delicious to me.
Cul-de-sac is another one that really got me. The spelling of the word cul-de-sac.
Do you, when you type out cul-de-sac, do you put the spaces in between like cul-de-sac, or do you just? I
didn't even know how to spell it.
Do you spell it as 3 different words or one word? Like, what do you do?
I didn't. I think I was trying to spell it, and I spoke because I had no idea like how to spell it. So I just like talked to text.
Yeah.
And it was cul-de-sac, and it was like CUL hyphen DE hyphen SAC, and I was like,
what is
you
that?
You need 2 hyphens for one word? It's like, what? It's the dumbest thing I've seen.
It's like hors d'oeuvres. Like, I'll never forget the first time that I saw hors d'oeuvres spelled out. I was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Like, I was looking at it like that word didn't make any sense to me when I'll never forget when I saw it for the first time. I was like, why is there an H? like, why is there an H in it?
Yeah.
But it's crazy.
Yeah, chaos is another one where an H shouldn't be there.
Oh my god.
John Fognano, right? Shout out John Fognano. He was reading it in like freshman year, and he read it chachos.
Chachos. So I have a similar story. AJ Grinsiri did like one of the same things like our freshman year. He wrote it as like chaos. And I was like, you know what? I wouldn't known how to say it any better either. And then our English teacher was like, it's chaos. And I was like, oh, that's how you spell that.
Yeah.
I was like, well, we're all now smarter before it.
Thank you, high school English class. Yeah. John, thank you so much, dude, for coming down, spending the time, man. Long time coming. I'd love to have you back. It's really fun to talk to you about all my crazy ideas. You play into it very well.
Hey, I'm happy to. Like, if you would have told me 20 or 25 years ago we'd be sitting at this table on a podcast, I don't think I would have believed you.
I would have believed it.
Yeah, maybe for you.
Yeah.
But no, this is awesome. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah. I'm happy to come back anytime.
Awesome,
you know that.
Man. Awesome. Thanks
all
again.
Right, buddy.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
All right. See you soon.
Later.
Thanks.